Welcome. In this class, we will look at the final chapter of Hilchos Beis Habechirah, the laws of God's chosen house, namely the Holy Temple, authored by the Rambam Maimonides, one of his 14 books that cover all of Jewish law. This is a section in the book that deals with the temple in general. So we're going to look at the last chapter of this work, which deals with the construction of God's house, namely the materials, the dimensions, specifications, and it also discusses the vessels, the sacred vessels used in God's house. So chapter 8, which is the final chapter, the laws of the construction of the Holy Temple, the chapter begins with the following halacha. Guarding the Mikdash, Maimonides writes, is a positive commandment even though there is no fear of enemies or bandits. For the purpose of the guarding is not for protection, rather it is an expression of respect, honor. A palace that has guards is not the same as a palace that does not have guards. Maimonides then goes on to describe, identify where exactly in the temple precincts, the compound, guards were placed. These guards were the Kohanim and the Leviim. They were not armed, as we just learned. It was ceremonial, and they stood there all night. The Kohanim on the inside, the Leviim on the outside, as detailed in the ensuing laws. The second last law, halacha 11 of this chapter, describes the daily inspection. Before dawn each morning, while it's still dark, the Kohanim held 2 torches of fire in their hands and divided into 2 groups. One proceeded eastward and the other westward. They inspected the entire courtyard, and when they met, they declared, Shalom, Hakol Shalom, peace, all is peace. So this was an inspection of the entire courtyard of the temple, which contained the Vayakhel, the sanctuary, and the altar, and everything, all of the components that made up the functioning temple. So this was inspected each morning before dawn while it was still dark. The 2 groups met. Each one inspected half of the area. They declared, Shalom, Hakol Shalom, peace, all is peace. The final halacha reads, this is halacha number 12, the final paragraph. This pattern was followed each night except on Shabbos night, meaning Friday night. For then they did not hold torches of fire. Rather, they carried out the inspection by the light of flames that were kindled there before the onset of Shabbos. On the walls, before Shabbos, they lit these torches, which burned through the night, and it's with the light of these torches that this daily inspection was made. Several questions. The first question is as follows. As mentioned, this is the final chapter of Hilchos Beis Habechirah. Now, Hilchos Beis Habechirah, again, are the laws that detail the construction of the Beis Hamikdosh, architectural instructions, down to the minutiae. What's described here is really the service in the Beis Hamikdosh, the guarding, the inspection. Surely this chapter does not belong in the laws of construction, but rather in another section which he wrote, which details the laws of the actual daily avoda. This was done every day, part of the daily service, and that's where it belongs. This entire chapter 8 surely does not belong and doesn't fit and not part of the laws of the layout of the temple, the dimensions, and so on. So why does this appear as the final chapter of the laws of the construction of the Beis Hamikdosh? And rather than, and actually he does make reference to this, when he discusses these laws of guarding and inspection, when he discusses the ongoing service, the avoda in the Beis Hamikdosh. Question number 1. Question number 2, a nuanced kind of question. So when they all met, the 2 groups met each morning, They said, shalom, peace, hakol, shalom, all is peace. Peace. This is not the issue. The issue is everything is in its place. Hakol al mekomo. Everything is in order, or in contemporary vernacular in Hebrew, hakol beseder. Surely that should have been their greeting. They're informing each other, each one inspecting half the perimeter. Why are they invoking this notion of shalom, peace, hakol shalom, and repeating that word peace twice? What's conveyed here? It's somewhat odd and needs explanation. Another question. Law number 11 and law number 12 is really one subject. Inspecting the courtyard by the light of the torches. Law number 12 simply says, this is what was done 6 nights a week, but not Friday night. It's one subject. It should be in one paragraph, one law. Why is law number 12 added as an additional law and simply not the continuation of law number 11, given that it's the very same subject? We inspect with torches every night except Shabbos, when they use torches that were lit from before the onset of Shabbat. Why does Maimonides separate that as an independent law? And the primary question. The primary question, friends, let's look at text number 4. From the Rambam, the laws of Shabbos and the laws of Yom Kippur, where he writes, rabbinic safeguards, Sichos in Hebrew, do not apply to the Beis Hamikdosh. In Hebrew, ein Sichos b'Hamikdosh. To explain, Sichos means the safeguards, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of such laws that the sages enacted in order to protect the Torah law. Classic example, on Shabbos, one may not handle matches. The Torah doesn't prohibit the handling or moving or touching of matches on Shabbos. The Torah prohibits kindling a match or extinguishing one. So the sages prohibited even touching it for fear that it could easily lead to striking the match. That's a classic example of a Sichos. And there are thousands of such protective laws. The fence around the Torah, in the words of our sages in Pirkei Avot. That's their mandate. But there is no Sichos. They did not apply their rabbinic safeguards to the Holy Temple. Simple reason, the reason for these safeguards is one might forget, he's handling the matches, you'll strike the match. So to avoid that, don't touch it in the first place. One step removed. In the Holy Temple, where God is revealed, there is this obvious, acute awareness of Hashem and His commandments, and therefore not the fear that one will inadvertently transgress. We have the luxury in the temple to observe Torah law without the need to protect it, because the environment is inspiring enough. Which therefore leads to our question. Carrying a lit torch, a candelabrum, is not a Torah prohibition. The sages prohibited it because if you're carrying a lit candelabrum, you might extinguish a flame, or if it goes out, kindle it, don't touch it. But there's no Sichos in the Beis Hamikdosh. So our question is, Friday night, the Friday early before dawn inspection, should be the same as all the other 6 nights of the week, taking the torches in their hand and inspecting the courtyard, the perimeters of the courtyard. Simple question. There is no Shavut in the Bet HaMikdash. Why all of a sudden? No, they're not carrying the torches of fire. They have to use fire that was lit before Shabbat. All right, so let's repeat our questions. Very briefly, the first question is, this entire discussion of the guarding and the inspection surely doesn't belong here in the laws of the construction, the details of the construction. Second question, when they met this inspection, the language they used, shalom hakol shalom, needs clarification. Third question, the fact that they didn't do this Friday night is only a detail in the law of the inspection, which is law number 11. So that's where that paragraph belongs, not as an independent law in its own right. Fourth question, that's the main question of our discussion today, is why wouldn't they use lit torches on Shabbos morning? That's a rabbinic safeguard, and there are no rabbinic safeguards. They are not observed and do not apply to the Beis Hamikdosh. So this last question is an obvious question. The first three questions, I should point out, only the Rebbe asks. I don't see any other commentaries addressing it because they're the kind of questions, nuanced questions, that the Rebbe would pick up on and illuminate. But the last question, that there's no Shavut in the Beis Hamikdash, is a very obvious question that needs clarification. So indeed, quote number 5, the Kesef Mishnah, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, in his commentary on the Rambam says, this case is different. In this case, we will observe the rabbinic safeguard as it's possible to inspect with pre-lit lights. When do we not observe a rabbinic safeguard? When somehow it's an impediment. It's stopping us from doing, it's a step that stops us from our objective. If our objective can be achieved and respect the rabbinic safeguard, then there's no reason why not to. So the inspection can just as well be done with torches lit before Shabbat. There's no need to carry them by hand. So in this case, other cases, we will not observe rabbinic safeguards. If we need to move things, we'll move things. Even though outside the Beis Hamikdosh on Shabbos, for example, you wouldn't, because it might lead to using them in a forbidden way. No such fear. If you need to move it, move it. Here we're not losing anything. The inspection is carried out uncompromised, carrying the torches or not. So you might as well not carry them. That's the Kesef Mishnah's answer. But the Rebbe rejects that answer. And let's look at source number 6. The case in point here is Yom Kippur. Now the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, immersed himself 5 times on Yom Kippur in a mikveh. One may not bathe, no one else may bathe or immerse in a mikveh on Yom Kippur, but the Kohen Gadol mandated in the Torah did. So what if he's old or infirm? The water is cold. What do we do? Let's read the law. This is from the Rambam, again, the laws of Yom Kippur, chapter 2, law number 4. If the Kohen Gadol is old or infirm, slabs of iron are heated before Shabbos and placed in the water the following day, since there's no Shavuos in the Mikdash. Let me explain. Normally, what's happening now? So they heat up, what's the solution? Iron slabs are put on a fire before the onset of Yom Kippur. He only immerses in the mikveh the next day, not Yom Kippur. What? Or before Yom Kippur. Yeah. Well, Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. And then it is placed in the mikveh. And that heats up the mikveh. Now normally, on Yom Kippur or Shabbos, we may not heat up water, a mikveh, in this manner. Why? Because the following rabbinic safeguard or concern or fear. Steel, metal, the final act in its hardening and consolidating it after it's heated is by putting it into cold water. So this looks like too similar to the normal process of completing metal objects, which one may not do on Shabbos or Yom Kippur. So even though the intent here is not to complete the iron slab, it's already been done, we're reheating it. It's only to heat the water. So normally such an act would be prohibited outside the Beis Hamikdosh. But here it's not a problem because there is no Shavuos, there is no rabbinic safeguards observed in the temple. Now he gives an alternative. Alternatively, hot water is poured in the mikveh, which we could the water is heated up before Shabbat, before Yom Kippur, and then poured. That could be done even outside the Holy Temple. Now what do we see from here? It's an alternative. The first suggestion is, no worries, put the iron slabs in the water. So we see that even when you can achieve your objective by respecting rabbinic law, because you could put hot water poured in the mikveh, that's an alternative solution. But the first solution is just put the iron slabs in, which teaches us that Even when we can respect rabbinic law, we simply ignore it. It's just irrelevant. So the suggestion of the Kesef Mishnah to our problem, why aren't they carrying the lit torches? There's no shvus in the Beis Hamikdosh. The Kesef Mishnah says, well, why not? You can achieve your objective by having it lit before. But we see from this source that it's simply not a consideration. Because in the case of the mikveh on Yom Kippur, we could achieve the same end and respect rabbinic law by not using iron slabs. Yet Allah says, don't worry about it. The same Rambam. There's no shvus in the Beis Hamikdosh. So that's our basic question that we need to answer, and we will answer our other questions as well. In order to understand this, friends, let's talk about Hanukkah for a moment. Now, we all know the story of Hanukkah. The story of Hanukkah was that the Jews had driven out the occupying Greeks. The temple had been defiled. They searched for pure oil in order to begin to observe once again the kindling of the menorah. It was all impure, contaminated. They found one cruse of oil, which was pure, and it lasted miraculously for 8 days. It was enough for one night supply, it lasted 8. Why did God do that miracle? What was the point? Simple answer is, because it takes 8 days to make pure oil. Why? Because everybody then was, or most people were ritually impure. How? Come in contact with death. There was carnage and death tragically everywhere. Now, when a person is in contact with death, touching a cadaver, a dead body, or being under the same canopy, that person is ritually impure, Tomei, for 7 days. It's a shiva. To go through the purification process, he needs to be sprinkled with the ashes of the red heifer on the 3rd and 7th day, where he's no longer post contact with the defiling dead body, and then immersed in a mikveh finally, and then on the 8th day he's pure. Because everybody was ritually pure, to take an olive and squeeze it, they would defile themselves the oil. So therefore Hashem made a miracle. The pure oil that they found lasted enough time, another 7 days, so that they could go through themselves the purification process, and then thereafter kindle the menorah with pure oil. Now, as an aside, but when they handled that pure oil, did they not contaminate it by handling it? The answer is they didn't handle it directly. They used unfinished pieces of wood that does not convey impurity, and that's how they poured it into the menorah. The famous question is this. Please look at the next source, the Talmud, number 9. The laws of impurity are suspended with respect to communal obligations and services. In Hebrew, Tuma Hutra B'tzibur. What this means is as follows. In a time of war or a plague, where there's death everywhere, and the majority of the people are ritually impure, the majority of the Kohanim are ritually impure, the law is the service in the temple continues uninterrupted. So the question is, you're impure. Take an olive, squeeze it. The olive is impure because you're impure. But the case is where if the majority of the community is impure, the laws are suspended. So they could have used the oil that they would produce themselves, notwithstanding the fact that they're impure, every day, and make a supply until they turn pure. So which begs the question, there's no need for the miracle. There's no need for the miracle because the service, the kindling of the menorah, should have continued from the moment they returned to the temple and drove the Greeks out, notwithstanding the fact that they're impure, because the laws of impurity are suspended when the majority of people are impure. So why did God do the miracle? Question's clear?
There was not one pure person.
Pardon?
There was not like one pure person.
There was not one?
One pure person. I guess not.
Yeah, in this case, it would seem a good point. There was nobody that was pure because death was everywhere. So everybody was ritually impure, not a problem. Squeeze your oil, your olive, and then 7 days later, or 8 days, on the 8th day, Everybody is now pure and continue with pure oil. The service, the show goes on uninterrupted even with impure oil. There was no need for God to make a miracle. One of the answers is as follows. We need to appreciate, in a moment we're going to look at a source. There was two problems, two kinds of impurity. The people were ritually impure because, unfortunately, there was death everywhere. Corpses. As a result of the battle with the Greeks. In addition to that, the Greeks had defiled the Beis Hamikdosh, defiled it by bringing in objects of idolatry and so on. So the Beis Hamikdosh had to be cleansed. Not even more than cleansed, the holiness, the overt holiness departed. In essence, the holiness remained but not manifest. It was not the holy Beis Hamikdosh. It was a beautiful, defiled, struck edifice. That had to be all removed. It had to be cleansed of that kind of defilement. In other words, it's like they had to rededicate the Beis Hamikdosh, reintroduce its holiness, or re-reveal its holiness. It's a sacred place, but the building wasn't sacred. And that's what Hanukkah means. The word Hanukkah actually means chinuch, to rededicate the Beis Hamikdosh. Let's look at quote number 10. This is from Rabbi Yosef Engel, the author of Gilyonei Hashas, in addressing the question, why did God perform this miracle? And he answers, when establishing Kedusha anew, it is inappropriate to rely on the leniency, compromise of the Tumah suspension halacha, which means to say as follows. When the temple is there and the holiness is manifest and people are impure, even the majority, the temple can tolerate this and embrace that. You bring your offerings, you light the menorah. So the laws of impurity are suspended because the holy place can tolerate me, the people being impure. This is not the case in point. There was no holiness in the temple. We need to establish it to begin with. That cannot be established with us being impure. The people that are now rededicating the Beis Hamikdosh must do so in they went 100% purity, because we're establishing the purity in the first place. It's only once it's there that it can tolerate people being impure. But here the issue is the temple itself is not a holy place. Again, the words of Rabbi Yosef Engel, when establishing Kedusha anew, then it's inappropriate to rely on the leniency or compromise of the Tumah suspension halacha. Let's explore that a little bit further. We have a kind of a contradiction. What's the contradiction referring to? On the one hand, when they built the Beis Hamikdosh, the law is when Shabbos came, they had to stop. Because on Shabbos you can't build. So the laws of Shabbos are not suspended or superseded when they built the Beis Hamikdosh. Once they built it, they brought sacrifices in the Beis Hamikdosh, slaughtered the animals, offered, roasted them, and they were placed on the altar, consumed by fire, things that are prohibited by the Torah. So while we're building the temple, we have to respect every law of Shabbos. Once it's done, the laws that apply to the sacrifices, which entail Shabbos prohibited labors, must be done. So then why can't I supersede the laws of Shabbos while building the temple? Because this is going to be a place where I'm going to be offering sacrifices, something you can't do outside the temple, even for private use, slaughter, cook meat, etc. Answer, same answer. Once the Beis Hamikdosh is established, this holy place, then we bring these offerings and do these labors which on Shabbos per se may not be done. But this is embraced by the temple because the holiness is established, and that's the mitzvah to bring the Shabbos offerings. But while you're building the Beis Hamikdosh, there's no license to transgress the Shabbos. And if you are, you will undermine the holiness of the temple that you are building. Similar idea now. In the story of Hanukkah, God had to make this miracle. They had to use only pure oil, because here it's not just a question. Here's the Beis Hamikdosh, we were impure, And now when we weren't there, we've come back and we're going to light the menorah. We just simply hadn't been doing it for a while. Now we're continuing it. We're impure, no problem. Do it. There's no Beis Hamikdosh. The Greeks had defiled it. We're rededicating it anew. The building is a building, but it's not the holy temple. We're making it as we are making it the holy temple, mitzvah by mitzvah, reintroducing all of the observances. They must be done with 100% respect to the laws of purity. They cannot tolerate any aspect of impurity or leniency that would normally allow. If the majority are impure, then the Beis Hamikdosh can tolerate and accept that. Not when you're creating the holiness. Let's apply this now to the question at hand. What's our primary question? The primary question is, why can't you go with lit torches? There's no shvus in the Beis Hamikdosh. Answer. Let's actually first address the first question we asked. This whole discussion of the guarding and of the inspection, why is it here in the section dealing with the outline, the architectural details of the building of the house? That belongs in the way you serve. It's a daily service. From which we see that the guarding and the inspection is not a service. In fact, as the Rambam said, there was no need for it. There was no need for it. It's simply an expression of honor. What it means is this. Integral to the sanctity of the Beis Hamikdosh is that we need to be in awe of it. That God is revealed here. Otherwise, it's a beautiful building. If it doesn't move me to be in awe at the wonder of it, God Almighty is manifest here on earth, and I am here, then the Beis Hamikdosh is simply a building and has not achieved its function. That's what this ceremonial guard is, and that's what the inspection is. Before the actual service began, which began at dawn, this isn't part of the service. This is an affirmation of the holy temple itself. It's the culmination. It's what turns it into a beautiful building to the house of God. It's only the house of God if I'm in awe. If I'm not in awe, God says it's not my home. To rephrase that, if every day, continuously, it does not, the wonder and the appreciation of the fact that I am here and revealed to you because I love you and I want to be part of your life, if that isn't appreciated every day, then we don't have a relationship. We don't have a house. That's what completes the temple and makes it the holy temple. It's our awe of it, our appreciation of it, the way we treat it in our minds and hearts, not the way we act in it. That's, therefore, how do you behave? The protocol of behavior, that's another section. Therefore, when it comes to expressing our awe and wonder of the sanctity, there's no room here for the sages enacted on Shabbos out of respect for Shabbat, not even to touch a lit flame. But it doesn't apply to Beis Hamikdosh. We don't need to bring that stringency, that extra degree of respect. We do. We want to observe even rabbinic law. We want to wax effusive. We want to show our awe and wonder in every way possible. So we will not carry the torch. If that's part of a Shabbos law, then we want to bring every possible ritual that is possible to express our thanks. Let me elaborate. It's a very subtle point. When saying thank you, when showing appreciation, that's where you want superlatives. That's where you want to be effusive. That's where you want to express with nuance and tenderness, not just a perfunctory thank you, but one with nuance and detail. That's where detail belongs. So every morning, as the Jewish people represented by the Kohanim express their awe and amazement of the Beis Hamikdosh, and the Shabbos morning, we're going to do that with awareness, with every possible awareness of rabbinic law and what the sages enacted, respecting Shabbos, respecting the Holy Temple. There's no leniency or compromise. That's the message here. That's the reason why they did not carry the torches. I'll make it clear in a moment, we'll see. But let's just establish this. We've answered why this law appears in the law, this whole discussion of the guarding and the inspection appears not in Hilchos Avodah, the laws of the service, but rather the construction, because that's how all of it has ratified the Beis Hamikdosh. It's justified. God says now it's a holy house because you are in awe of it and you appreciate it and you don't take it for granted. And that's expressed in the ceremonial guarding and the inspection. And therefore it's done with detail that's not critical or necessary. Because we want to bring to bear every possible attention to detail, scriptural or rabbinic, to illustrate the point and the message. What's our takeaway? As we all know, our relationship with God is a marriage. The house, the Beis Hamikdosh is the house we live together. Once a marriage has been established, a couple is married, committed to each other, it can tolerate some imperfections, an improper word, a moment of shouldn't happen, but it can happen, forgetfulness, disrespect, raising a voice. The marriage is not going to fall apart, or should not, because it's established, you're committed, and it can be absorbed. Not just absorbed, actually even grow from these moments and become even closer. But imagine, under the chuppah, or as bride and groom are walking to the chuppah, one says to the other or does something that is somehow not entirely focused. It's entirely inappropriate and calls into question, wait, should we continue? Or maybe to make it clearer, once they're engaged, from the engagement to the marriage, we're in our best behavior. This is a very delicate time. We're just building towards the chuppah. There's no room here for being distracted or being forgetful or not attentive. And you want to be overly attentive. It's a delicate time. This whole relationship is being forged, nurtured. So it's very delicate. Once it's there, it can withstand and tolerate, even embrace, imperfections, distractions, forgetfulness. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But I shouldn't have said that when the awareness surely now is, and the whole intent is to create this relationship. And that's the case in point. The message here is, never lose that. Every single day, this ceremonial guard, this inspection is, wow, I can't believe we have the Beis Hamikdosh. God loves me so much and wants to share himself with me in this home. The message is, on some level, every day, it's got to be like, I can't believe I'm married. I can't believe the gift of it. It's such an amazing, awesome thing that leaves me humbled. And I want to bring to the relationship every nuance possible, that necessary or not, that will enhance and express my awe and appreciation of the relationship. That's what's happening every day before the day begins, which is the business of life. Interacting with each other, with God, doing the mitzvahs. Before a husband and wife interact, there's got to be a foundation. And let's not forget that. This is a great gift. This is awesome. This is divine. This is mystical. And with that in place, our interactions will, despite the vicissitudes of life and the obvious ups and downs, overall, this is in fact the foundation. What is the foundation of the marriage is that the recognition that it's something divine and godly and awesome, and treated that way. So that's the reason we've answered our question. Why didn't they take the torches? It's a leniency. You can, but we don't want to do anything lenient. We don't want to compromise the spirit of Shabbat on this day, or the Beis Hamikdosh. It's all holiness and godliness. Yeah, you don't have to, but this is a moment of thanks and appreciation, of wow and recognition, then it's going to be elaborate. It's going to be effusive. And that's the message in our relationships and in the big picture, just being Jewish. Just being Jewish, which is that fundamental relationship with God. We are all in this relationship, husband and wife. The Moda Ani is really kind of this moment. The Moda Ani lefanecha, I thank you that I'm waking up as a Jew, that I am Jewish. That's what it's saying. And that's got to be something we never take for granted. This awesome gift of being a Jew. And then with that, we then proceed the rest of the next moment. We start to do the rituals, wash our hands and make blessings, which all are in lieu of the service in the temple. But the foundation's got to be wonder. Don't take this for granted. And that is the final law of the construction of of God's house. Because this awe and wonder turns it from a beautiful building, even a religious building, into truly the house of the divine, the house of God, where God and man meet and become one. Thanks for listening.
What about why they say Hakol Shalom?
Pardon? Thank you. And that answers why Shalom, Hakol Shalom. Shalom is actually one of the names of God. Which is why we cannot, it's close. We cannot say Shalom in a bathhouse. We don't say Shabbat Shalom in the bathhouse, etc. Because that's what we're invoking. We're invoking Shalom, the name of God. We're invoking wholesomeness and peace. Shalom means whole, complete. Peace means two things combined. This is a place where God meets man. This is awesome. That's the awesomeness. That this is the place of Shalom. Hakol Shalom. All is one. We are one with God. Me, finite, puny man. God, you want to be a part of, and we are one. And that's manifest in this home, which we all need to make our own homes reflect. That's Shalom. That's true wholesomeness. That's true peace and wonder. And as mentioned, it also evokes the name of God. And that answers also why Rambam sets this law as an independent law. Because if he would just run it all in one law, so it's the law of the inspection, and it would lose the emphasis. It's the final law, standalone final law. We don't do this on Shabbos to make it clear to the reader. He wants us to ask, why not? He wants us to highlight that. He wants us to confront this, because it's an obvious question. Why are we carrying the torches on Shabbos? There's no Shavus, there's no rabbinic safeguards in the Beis Hamikdosh. No, he separates that because we're going to respect it. Because what's the whole point of this guarding is our expression of awe and wonder and respect for this relationship. So he sets it on its own to garner that attention and to highlight what's the whole point of a separate law of the whole inspection in the first place. Just a final point. Another kind of message here is, so they used the fire that was lit out of Shabbat. Let's look at source number 13 from the Mishnah Tractate Talmud. The era of Mashiach is the era of Shabbos forever. Yom Shekolu Shabbat, we express that in our prayers on Shabbat, grace after meals, and so on. So what's the symbolism here? That the Messianic era, the light that will be revealed then, is determined by the light that we light on Friday in the exile period. Now is the critical period, despite all of the tests, to dig deep in and questions and our commitment. It is this fire that we light now that we will enjoy and bask in when Mashiach comes. That's also the symbolism here, that on Shabbos, what light did they use? The light that's lit out of Shabbat. The great Shabbos, the great Sabbath, Messianic era, the experience, the utopia, the revelation of God is determined by the candles of truth that we light now, which are mitzvahs in the exile period. As the Rebbe told Bibi Netanyahu, when Bibi first met the Rebbe, he came to the Rebbe on Simchas Torah, When he was the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, the Rebbe told him, the UN, which represents the world, is a house of darkness. And how do you banish darkness? By simply lighting the flame of truth. Tell the truth. The truth is, why Israel? Because God promised it to us in the Torah. Tell the truth. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. I'm not quoting the Rabbi, I'm just elaborating. There's no such thing as a Palestinian people. It is an absolute myth created by Arafat and the Soviets in 1967, or perhaps even earlier. Tell the truth repeatedly. It has no substance. It's only darkness. And if you tell the truth and live the truth, now you will enjoy the Yom Shekolo Shabbat, the utopian, blessed Messianic era, which will be light and Shabbat for all humanity. May we merit that without delay. Amen.